The infamous damning memo about the just terrible, disgraceful, depraved actions of the FBI has been released after being declassified by Donald Trump, and it's of absolutely no consequence. I usually, when I call something a nothing burger, I usually call it a nothing burger satirically. I'm making a joke about the right's use of that term. But the memo that was written by Republican Congressman Devin Nunes was seen before its release as a sort of possible destroyer of the Trump Russia investigation. It's been released. I've looked at it. Millions have looked at it, and it's nothing. I mean, it is truly nothing in any way. And the only real impact of the memo's release and the uncertainty about the future of the US political status quo vis-a-vis the Trump administration was to crash the stock market on Friday, almost a 666-point decline in the Dow Jones Industrial Average on Friday, amidst the chaos of the release of this memo that made it the biggest single-day decline in a couple of years. And beyond that, the only real consequences are to show Devin Nunes is merely the hyper-partisan bomb thrower that we actually already knew him to be, and to confirm that actually the FBI is really on to something with their investigation. This, once again, to reset for you, was the memo that was going to confirm once and for all that Robert Mueller was on a partisan witch hunt on the behalf of the FBI and that he must be stopped. It all must be stopped, and Mueller must be fired or prosecuted or whatever. But what does the memo actually say? Well, let's go through it. The memo, written by Devin Nunes, alleges that the infamous Christopher Steele Trump Russia dossier was an important part of the FISA applications against Carter Page. Again, it asserts that. It doesn't provide evidence of that. It's a memo from Devin Nunes. And even if true, it's not a huge deal, right? Since more and more of that Trump Russia dossier from Christopher Steele has been corroborated, after all. The memo asserts that the four FISA surveillance applications were signed by, in different combinations, fired FBI Director James Comey, not when he was fired, right? When he was the FBI director, Andrew McCabe, Sally Yates, Dana Bunty, and Rod Rosenstein. And why wouldn't they be, right? Those were and are some of them important officials who would, of course, be involved in the signing of those FISA applications. The FBI, according to Devin Nunes's memo, authorized payments to a former British intelligence operative, Christopher Steele, for working on the dossier. And again, according to Devin Nunes's memo, the FBI terminated its agreement with Steele in late October when it learned through reading articles in the media that Christopher Steele had been talking to the media. Again, this is unproven because Devin Nunes is merely asserting these things in his memo without actually having provided the underlying intelligence, nor having seen it himself, but we'll get to that later. But if it's true that the FBI terminated its relationship with Christopher Steele, that indicates that the FBI acted appropriately, right? They initially hired a respected intelligence officer, and they subsequently stopped working with him when they found out that he was talking to the media. That means the FBI did the right thing. The FBI acted correctly and with integrity, not exactly the blockbuster destruction of the FBI's integrity that we were led to believe the memo would be. And Nunes alleges that the political origins of the Steele dossier were known to senior Department of Justice and FBI officials, but that the nature of that political origin was excluded from the FISA applications. That's an unproven assertion. And again, even Devin Nunes himself hasn't seen those FISA applications. So let's take the big picture of it. If the memo's claims are 100% accurate, it's still no indictment whatsoever on Robert Mueller's investigation, but the accuracy isn't known since the memo's writer, Congressman Devin Nunes, hasn't even seen the intelligence that the claims are based on. And that's a key thing, right? Nunes wrote a memo about what intelligence documents say, but those aren't documents he saw. And you don't have to take my word for that. Here's Devin Nunes on Bret Baier's Fox News program. And Bret Baier asks him, did you see the documents that you wrote about in the memo? And Nunes says, no, I didn't see them. Take a look at this.
Occur.
Did you write
so
the
it's
memo?
not a place we wanted to go. It's not a place we wanted to go, but it's where we had to go.
Did you write it?
Myself, Trey Gowdy, our two investigators, and then obviously checked by the lawyers and the rest of our committee members.
Did you read the actual FISA applications?
No, I didn't. And this has been one of these bogus news stories that have been put out. So the agreement we made with the Department of Justice was to create a reading room and allow one member and two investigators to go over and review the documents. I thought the best person on our committee would be the chairman of the Oversight Committee, Trey Gowdy, who has a long career as a federal prosecutor, to go and do this.
That's right. He didn't read them. He's trying to tell Bret Baier and the American public why it doesn't matter. Well, one person was designated to go, and we had a reading room, and these are sensitive documents. The bottom line is that the guy crying foul and saying it's all terrible, it's immoral, it's illegal, didn't read the intelligence that his own memo is based on. And before the release of the memo had the power of myth, right? The right could guess, they could predict, they could fearmonger what was actually in the memo. The memo has now been released. They can't fearmonger anymore. They just have to lie about it because the memo's contents, if true, which we don't know the truth of, it barely registers as even remotely notable. And the guy who wrote the memo, Devin Nunes, didn't even see the intelligence that the memo is supposedly based on. But for many Trumpists, it never really mattered what was in the memo, right? Fox News will still insist that it's shocking. Trump is insisting that the FBI is in tatters and the memo proves that there's no collusion, which of course has nothing to do with the content of the memo whatsoever. The Drudge Report, a right-wing online news aggregation website, has been running headline after headline about the FBI in, quote, disgrace. And the truth is, to any clear-thinking individual, that this entire so-called scandal is another laughable attempt to discredit Robert Mueller. Even ignoring that what is in the memo was totally cherry-picked and taken out of context and arguably inaccurate, if this memo is the best they can do, the entire case against Robert Mueller is just an utter and pathetic joke. And they told us it would expose corruption. It would expose crimes. It would expose horrible immorality. All that was really exposed by the memo is that Robert Mueller's investigation has a very solid basis, and there's really no reason to be concerned whatsoever about Robert Mueller as some kind of partisan hack on a witch hunt of any kind. And all of a sudden, I don't know if you saw this, but after the memo's release, Republican Congressman Trey Gowdy put out a tweet shortly after he announced he's leaving Congress altogether. And now it's all starting to make more sense. Trey Gowdy tweeted, quote, while this memo raises serious concerns about the FISA process, I have been and remain confident in the overwhelming majority of the men and women serving at the FBI and the DOJ. As I have said repeatedly, I also remain 100% confident in Special Counsel Robert Mueller. The contents of this memo do not in any way discredit his investigation. More and more, it appears that Trey Gowdy choosing to leave Congress at this time is to get away from the atrocity of the political attempts to interfere in Robert Mueller's investigation. Even RedState.com, which is a conservative publication, is questioning the accuracy of the memo. It points out first that the memo is summarizing intelligence that we haven't actually seen, which I've been telling you as well, that Devin Nunes hasn't seen, and that we know the memo is wrong about at least one thing, which is on the public record. Check out what Devin Nunes says about James Comey's 2017 testimony. This is from the memo, okay? In Devin Nunes' memo, He writes, according to the head of the FBI's counterintelligence division, Assistant Director Bill Priestap, corroboration of the Steele dossier was in its infancy at the time of the initial Page FISA application, referring to Carter Page. After Steele was terminated, a source validation report conducted by an independent unit within FBI assessed Steele's reporting as only minimally corroborated. Yet in early January 2017, Director Comey briefed President-elect Trump on a summary of the Steele dossier, even though it was, according to his June 2017 testimony, salacious and unverified. Nunes is saying in his memo that James Comey said in June that the Steele dossier is salacious and unverified. It's just not true. We know that that's not true. James Comey never said that. Comey was asked in June of 2017 whether he had confirmed the allegations of the dossier. And Comey said he can't answer that in an open setting, and that the only time he said, the only time Comey used those words, salacious and unverified, was when he said he briefed Trump about salacious and unverified claims within the dossier. So to be perfectly clear, James Comey testified that he briefed Trump on the salacious and unverified elements of the dossier. Devin Nunes characterized James Comey as having called the entire dossier salacious and unverified. It's not true. Devin Nunes said something that either he knew to be untrue, or he deliberately distorted, or is ignorant of in his memo. And if that's the case, why do we trust anything in the memo whatsoever? The only success of this memo was creating an alternate conversation about discrediting Robert Mueller, period. The memo has exposed no wrongdoing. It has not discredited Robert Mueller as someone who cannot be trusted or is carrying out a partisan witch hunt. And maybe that's all that Republicans can hope for at this point, which is just to distract from the reality of the Trump-Russia investigation being carried out by Robert Mueller. Send me your thoughts. I'm on Twitter at @DPakman. The show is on Twitter at David Pakman Show, and we'll be talking about this more throughout the week.
The video you just finished watching was made possible by you through the membership program. You can sign up for membership at davidpakman.com/membership. We are viewer-supported independent media. You can use the coupon code IVoted17 for a 40% discount off of your membership.